Hi Ben, so good to have you. I wanted to go back to the current conflict, and I was wondering, given that obviously there's one side which does have, a respect for human rights, as you pointed out, they try to go about their response. Israel tries to go about their response in in the best way possible. At least I would argue. And you've got another side that has a fundamentally different alignment of values that does not have regard for the civilian lives. And in purely practical terms, that makes it quite difficult to wage war in a civilized way, as far as you can say that. So in terms of perhaps drawing a potential, I don't want to call it path to victory, but a path to defeating Hamas, but reconciling that with our values and, killing as few civilians as we can. And I understand that you know Benjamin Netanyahu and so on, so could you draw a possible sort of realistic path to victory that might reconcile?
So I'm not privy to the sort of military planning of the Israeli administration. I'm not in their security councils. What I will say is that any position that Israel takes that does not end with Hamas off the board is going to be extraordinarily dangerous for the future of the state of Israel. So that is the end goal. Everybody understands that to be the end goal. It's dangerous not only because Hamas has proved itself to be significantly more dangerous than everybody assessed Hamas to be, but also because that leads to a perception of Israeli military weakness and inability to protect its own citizens that leads other groups, including in the West Bank and also in the northern border by Hezbollah, to get involved. And that's incredibly, incredibly dangerous. So is there a best of all possible worlds? Yeah, the best of all possible worlds is for Hamas to surrender, as I think everybody of good heart should agree at this point. If you don't agree that Hamas should surrender, I doubt why. I have some serious questions about why. That, again, very difficult for me to find any reason other than Jew hatred why you wouldn't want Hamas to, even for the sake of Palestinians, why you wouldn't want Hamas to go. That would be the most obvious bill. So is Hamas going to do that? Probably not, which means that it's in everybody's interest, or should be in everybody's interest, to depose Hamas as quickly and easily as possible. They've made it incredibly difficult. Obviously, the tunnel system, they have some 300 miles of tunnel underneath the ground. They've stolen billions of dollars in order to pursue that. They've built up resources under there. It's going to be a slog. It's going to take a lot longer than people think it's going to take. And it's going to cost, by the end of this, it's going to cost a lot of Israeli soldiers' lives, because they're going to have to attempt to go into serious urban terrain and wage this war. So I wish I saw a good way out. I don't see a good way out. I think people, there are a lot of happy solutions that we tend to think about in the West, but very few of them tend to materialize in war.
I suppose such are the realities of war. And I just wanted to say on a personal note, as a citizen of the Czech Republic, I think we stand very firmly with Israel.
I appreciate that.
History of doing so, and I hope everything is resolved as quickly as possible, and through your personal connection as well. I wish you the best.
Thank you very much.
Let's go to the elected member of standing committee.
Hello. So you have expressed pro-life sentiments before. How can you, so when women from low-income backgrounds, often in places where abortions are illegal, I've lived in a country where abortion's been illegal, they go, and people from low-income backgrounds are the ones who have to do unsafe abortions at home, who have to go into in backstreet vendors' places. How can you justify this as being safe for women to have just safety of women's health and women's rights?
The argument in favor of legislation against abortion is to protect the life of the unborn. The ideal would be that people don't violate the law in order to pursue an abortion. If you violate the law in pursuit of an abortion, you're obviously violating the law. I mean, I'm not sure what to say about that, other than I'm not interested in women dying in back alley abortions because I'm not in favor of abortions.
But women are going to people have abortions anyway. Abortions happen whether
not in the same numbers, I mean.
Well, if it's just high income women do have the opportunity to travel abroad and have abortions, whereas it's particularly low income women who suffer the brunt of having to do at-home abortions, and it's unsafe and it results in people dying. Do you really think that it's safe for women's health to allow, whereas we can allow it in a safe facility, and it can prevent women dying, it can prevent people dying in unsafe abortion places?
So, I mean, we're starting from completely different premises, and we're trying to reconcile the premises. So you're starting from the premise that the top priority is that a woman who violates the law to terminate her pregnancy, her safety is the number one priority. My number one priority is protecting the baby that's growing inside of her. So my answer to rich women are absconding in order to terminate their unborn child, that when women are absconding to do that, if they're rich, my preference would be that it hit everybody equally, meaning I don't want anybody getting an abortion, rich or poor. So as far as the second follow-on effect of that, obviously any law is going to have horrible downsides. That's true of literally every law. But the question is, when you're making a law with regard to, say, abortion, what are you attempting to prohibit, and how many lives are you preserving in the process of doing that?
Abortions are going to happen anyway.
Well, I mean, I understand that argument, but the fact is that when you make it significantly more difficult to get an abortion, fewer people get abortions. I mean, that's the entire purpose of having a law against abortion. That's why people, presumably, who are pro-choice don't want there to be laws against abortion.
Yeah, mostly don't want people to have laws against abortion lots of the time so that people can, have them in a safe environment.
But have them at all is sort of the first part of the sentence, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. We don't have very long left, so just before we wrap up, I wanted to ask two final questions. One of them is, this didn't come up yet in the interview, but you've been quite vocal in your criticisms of the Black Lives Matter movement, stating that all lives matter. But throughout this interview, you have not equally defended Palestinian lives, the civilian Palestinian lives, in the way that you have Israeli civilian lives. So when it comes to Israel-Palestine, do all lives not matter then?
So first off, it's a wild mischaracterization of the position that I've obviously expressed to you. You literally asked me, do I value Palestinian lives the same way I value Jewish lives? And I said, yes, I don't believe that the act of evil in targeting a Jewish child is the same as a military attempting to target a terrorist who's hiding behind a baby. So don't mistake the position, please. When it comes to the all lives matter position, of course I believe that all lives matter. My fundamental disagreement with Black Lives Matter is I don't agree with their premise. Their premise is that black people in the United States are being uniquely targeted by law enforcement for murder, and I don't think that the statistics prove that. I don't think the evidence is there for that. So I don't agree with the fundamental premise of the Black Lives Matter movement. Not that I don't believe that black lives don't matter. Of course Black Lives matter. They matter exactly the same amount as every other human life. But again, there's I think, a willful attempt to misinterpret my position on some of these issues.
Okay, thank you. And one question that we ask all of our guests who come here, if you could leave our members with one thing to think about, what would it be?
I mean, I think that tonight, the thing that I would leave with is the same thing that I came in with, which is that there are certain values that are worth protecting. There are certain values that are worth protecting. And one of those values is the value of understanding. The value of understanding clear moral differentiation, which obviously has been completely obscured. I think tonight we've seen some evidence of people obscuring some clear moral differentiation between the targeted burning of babies in their homes in front of their mothers by shoving them in an oven, and people attempting to kill terrorists who are themselves putting civilians in harm's way in violation of the rules of war and the Geneva Conventions. And if you're one of the people who's making this sort of moral equivalence, I ask for you to check your own heart. And if you're one of the people who's watching people make this moral equivalence and being convinced by the supposed complexity of the issue, I ask for you to check your brain. Thank you.
I agree with him because when it comes to war, ever since I've heard about war, even in the movie, people tend to let children and women, leave the country or keep them in a secure place because they are more vulnerable. So using children or women to prevent people from attacking you, whereas you are attacking them. To me, I feel you don't have the interest of those people at heart, because these are people that can't defend themselves, that can't fend for themselves. So I know women can fend for themselves, or children, building your military base under a hospital is not something that is advisable, because, if anything should happen, people are sick, they will go to that hospital. So you're using that as a way of preventing people or preventing Israel from striking you. To me, I feel it does not make sense. There are ways for you to, and I feel it does not make sense. For this war to end, I think the best way is for Hamas to put down their weapon. I believe by doing that, Israel is going to put down their weapon. Because what I see is Israel wants peace, but they are scared that if they should put down their weapon, Hamas will keep on attacking them. But I believe that if Hamas should put down their weapon, Israel will cease fire. But to me, I feel this war is getting out of hand, because at the end of the day, innocent souls are going to be lost, and that's the cost of war. And it is better to settle this peacefully. We know souls have already been lost, but to prevent more from losing their life, it's better we put this to an end. They should find a way to discuss. I know majority of the time they've done different peace accord, the Abraham, accord. They've done different peace accord, and they violated the peace accord. And I think what happened in October 7 was what brought the camel back for Israel. Israel felt like they've been living in peace, and you don't just unalive thousands of unarmed civilians and expect them not to retaliate. And I think that is what Hamas is passing through. They're passing through the repercussion of what they did in October 7. And I just wish they both can come together and find an amicable way of settling this issue. And aside from the Hamas issue, the guy spoke about abortion, talking about pro-life, pro-choice, and all. I think I know sometimes it's a difficult decision, especially when you are not ready financially or when you are not ready mentally to bring a child into this world. I know the stress is there, but I don't think there should be an exception, because I wanted to say except through, forceful entering, every other thing. But no matter what happened, a child is involved now. So the best thing is we need to look for a way to, save that child, bring that child into the world. If you feel you are not mentally okay to handle the affairs of the child, you can give it to government to provide a shelter home for the child, and give the child up for adoption to people that are ready or willing to have more children into their family. Some people are looking for children, they can adopt those children and help you train them. And I think the US government have provided opportunities for such situation. Based on what the guy said, he said if people, poor people would want to commit this abortion even without the government approval and stuff like that. But I think people that will commit abortion will commit abortion, and that is why the law is there that no one should do it. If you do it, there will be repercussion. And I think the law is not there because, the law is there to fear people. The law already know that people will violate it, and that is why there's punishment for anyone that goes against it. So the best thing is abstinence. If you don't want to be thinking about abortion, abstain from it. If it involves in maybe forceful entering, I think there are procedure, if you go to the hospital, they can easily flush it out, to prevent it from becoming a child. And I think I've heard of it before. Anyway, this is a beautiful one coming from Ben Shapiro. Let me know what you think in the comment section. If it's the first time visiting the channel, click on the subscribe button. Thanks for watching, and remain blessed.